Alright guys, Bill here. Today I'm going to do a video. This is going to be another 18th century based video. Just sit down. And what I'm going to want to cover today is a traditional firelighting of the 18th century. Now the main thing that was used for firelighting was flint and steel. Now this was in a few forms. You know, you've got the traditional piece of steel and a piece of flint, but they would also use muskets where they'd put the tinder into the pan of the musket, you know, pull down the hammer, the sparks light the tinder. So yeah, they relied on flint and steel. And when people use flint and steel, they assume that charcloth was used, but charcloth is not. It was used in the 18th century for lighting fires, but mainly in cities, and that would only be made with rags, you know, that were no other use for anything. Obviously cloth would have been a lot more valuable back then, so before it was, you know, just burnt to be used to start fires, it would have been used for anything else possible. Especially woodsmen, even if they did take charcloth out, it's going to run out, so you know they're going to be stuffed, so they had to char other materials when they were out on the trail, you know, that would be able to take a spark. So they mainly use plant tinders and, you know, things such as charred fungus. So that's period correct flint and steel firelighting, you know, no charcloth really. So what I'm just going to do is show you how they would char tinder back in the 18th century out in the field, and show you what I'm going to char. So I'll get back to you. Alright guys, so think about 18th century charring. They would have had tinder boxes, so you can imagine, you know, standard tin. Thing is, they wouldn't have pierced a hole in it just to char something. The idea of the tinder box obviously is to keep tinder dry, so they're not going to compromise such a valuable item just to char something. So the traditional way of charring out in the field to the 18th century woodsman is get your piece of, you know, plant tinder, whatever it is, in this case just a piece of amadou, put it on a stick and just hold it over the fire. This is quite a big piece, so might take a minute. Let's get in there though. So yeah, like I said, this was the main way of charring material back then, and you know, you don't have to pierce your tinder box or anything. Right, so it's charred there, you can see. So what they'd do next is they'd get their tinder box that hasn't got a hole in it, put the charred material in there, and then close the lid just to block the oxygen and, you know, extinguish the charred material. Another way of doing it is if they didn't have a tinder box, which is unlikely, but another thing you can do is dig a small hole in the earth, you know, put your charred material in there and bury it over again just to block the oxygen. Alright, so here we go. Oh, it's a charred piece. There we go. And the great thing about amadou, guys, as opposed to using charcloth, is it burns for much longer and it burns a lot hotter as well. So there you go. That's just how easy it is, guys. You know, don't need charcloth now. So if you are, obviously charcloth is great to use, but for me, as a person who likes to you know, try and practice, you know, genuine 18th century firelighting amongst other skills, this is the way to start fires for me. But you know, you can char all sorts of other material. You can also char punk wood, rotten wood, that works quite well, and you can also char things like cattail. So that's it guys, just a bit of 18th century firelighting, and I hope you enjoyed that. So thanks for watching, see you in the next one, cheers.